All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a terrifying online encounter that is absolutely going to make you rethink your late-night scrolling habits. We're breaking down a gripping digital horror story, taking a deep dive into the psychology of the midnight internet binge and that terrifying feeling of total digital vulnerability. So let's walk through exactly how a completely mundane night spiraled into an absolute nightmare.
You know the exact scenario we're starting with here. It's incredibly late, you are dead on your feet exhausted, but your brain flat out refuses to shut down. We've all been there, right? Your body is drained, but you're mindlessly scrolling through forums, totally ignoring that little voice in your head begging you to just go to bed. And it's exactly this state of vulnerable exhaustion that sets the stage for everything that happens next. To paint the picture, it's exactly 2:25 in the morning. Our subject is procrastinating, bouncing between Reddit and weird horror channels, all while acutely aware they only have 3 hours left before a grueling 8-hour shift. They even spill a few drops of Pepsi on the keyboard and casually wipe it away with a hoodie sleeve. It's that messy, classic picture of late-night digital fatigue.
Finally, they hit a wall. They look up at the search bar and see this huge, abnormally long string of random gibberish typed out, just because they've been resting a heavy, tired hand on the keyboard. That's the breaking point. They decide, okay, enough is enough, time to shut the laptop, cut their losses, and try to salvage just 3 hours of sleep. So they reach for the lid. But literally, a split second before that laptop closes, a small flashing red pop-up violently forces its way onto the screen. This wasn't something they searched for. And the text is super aggressive. This link will disappear in 6 seconds. Right underneath, a rapid countdown timer starts ticking. It just ambushes them right when their guard is completely down. Let's break down the psychology of what happens next. Starting right at 6 seconds, they just freeze, hand hovering over the mouse. Instantly, the brain screams, scam. Are they going to get their credit card stolen, unleash some massive virus? All logic is telling them to just snap the laptop shut and walk away. But the timer ticks down to 3 seconds, and suddenly a completely different psychological trigger takes the wheel. Hardcore FOMO, the fear of missing out. The brain goes, well, what if this leads to something totally exclusive, something bizarre no one's ever seen? The manufactured urgency of that disappearing link just completely short-circuits all rational thought. So curiosity completely overrides caution. The tension is through the roof, and at the absolute last possible second, right as the timer hits 1, they cave. The FOMO wins. They click the flashing red link. Instantly, boom, a new tab opens up. It loads this incredibly dark, super blurry video feed. Up in the top corner, there's a little badge that just says Live. They're squinting at the screen, totally confused about what they're actually looking at. In the middle of this murky feed, there's a shadowy figure sitting down. But the lighting is so awful you can't make out any details at all. They figure, okay, I guess I just got dropped into some random anonymous chat room. Trying to make sense of the whole weird situation, they speak out loud into their empty room, leaning in and saying, "Hello? Hello?" But instead of a stranger answering, they get hit with this deeply unsettling audio glitch. It's just their own voice echoing back through the speakers, like a hollow metallic feedback loop. Exactly like when you're on a phone call and the other person has their speaker volume cranked way too high. What happens next is just an agonizing stretch of time. The seated figure in the front of the video barely moves, just chilling on the shadows. And this eerie silence drags on for a full minute. They're just sitting there, completely still, waiting for this supposed stranger to say something, type something, literally anything to break the tension. But no, the screen stays mostly static and the silence is just deafening. Then, things get really weird. Out of the pitch black, a second figure appears way deep in the background of the stream. And the way this thing moves is deeply, deeply disturbing. First, it just stands perfectly still. Then, it starts swaying back and forth in this entirely unnatural way. It pauses, shakes its head violently, and then it starts creeping, slowly and deliberately creeping forward toward the person sitting in the foreground. Your heart would be hammering out of your chest watching this, right? You're seeing this unnatural shadow stalk forward, but there is this massive logical disconnect happening because the person seated in the front, the person they thought was a stranger, is completely oblivious. They aren't turning around, they aren't flinching. So our subject is desperately trying to rationalize it, thinking, okay, this has to be a prank or a pre-recorded video edited to look live, because honestly, no human being could sit that still with something creeping up right behind them. The tension is absolutely redlining as the thing gets dangerously close. You're totally bracing for a jump scare. But then, The shadow abruptly crouches down, drops completely out of the frame, and vanishes right underneath the desk of the oblivious person on screen.
The tension finally breaks. They breathe this massive sigh of relief, thinking the creepy video is over. So they physically lean in closer to the laptop to get a better look at the silhouette. But at that exact same moment, the silhouette on the screen leans in too, moving in perfect sync. Their eyes flick up, and they notice the tiny indicator light on their laptop webcam is glowing. They reach up, wipe a layer of dust off the lens, and the terrifying truth finally clicks.
Because as they wipe the lens and look back at the newly cleared screen, they don't see a stranger. They see themselves. This wasn't some random live stream from the dark web. It was a live, mirrored feed of their very own room. That weird audio feedback wasn't a glitch. It was their own mic feeding their voice directly back to them. The oblivious person sitting in the foreground? It was them the entire time.
The exact second that horrific realization hits, the video feed violently snaps shut, plunging the screen back into total darkness. But the darkness isn't safe anymore, is it? Their mind is just spinning out of control. Because if they were the oblivious person sitting in the front, that means the unnatural, swaying shadow creeping forward in the background wasn't in some stranger's house. It was standing right behind them, inside their own room.
It all boils down to two incredibly fatal mistakes made that night. The first, obviously, was letting curiosity win and clicking that flashing link at 2 a.m., but the second mistake, that's the one that really seals it. Think back to where the shadow went right before they realized the video was a mirror. It crouched down and hid beneath the desk, so the second fatal mistake was looking under their own table. Which brings us to the end of this explainer and leaves us with one deeply unsettling question. It's crazy how our screens can completely blind us to our actual physical surroundings. So I have to ask, next time it's 2 a.m., when you're dead tired, the house is completely silent, and you are just staring blankly into that glowing screen, are you absolutely sure you're alone? Stay safe out there, and maybe think twice before you click that late-night link.